If you have never seen a woman enter Nero Wolfe's office as if she had been invited to her own execution, you have missed one of New York's free entertainments. She arrived at 11 on a Wednesday in October, wearing a gray suit that looked expensive and a hat that looked bullied. Fritz showed her in. I was at my desk pretending correspondence mattered. Wolfe was in his chair behind the desk, huge, still, and irritated because the morning mail had included 3 orchid requests from strangers and 1 invitation to address a dinner. The woman stopped, looked at Wolfe, looked at me, and said, "Which of you is paid to believe impossible things?" "That depends," I told her. "Is there a budget?" Wolfe shut his eyes for half a second, his method of informing me that wit has limits. "Madam," he said, "Mr. Goodwin is paid to ask impertinent questions. I am paid, when I consent, to answer useful ones. Sit down." She sat. Not gracefully, not nervously either. She sat like someone who had made up her mind before dawn and had been suffering for it ever since. She said her name was Eleanor Vane, and I knew it, though I kept my face neutral. Her husband, Horace Vane, had died 14 months earlier, leaving money, enemies, and headlines. "I want you," she said to Wolfe, "to tell me whether my husband was buried twice." I stared. Wolfe merely moved one finger to straighten a sheet of paper. "People are commonly buried once," he said. "Exceptions are seldom administrative." "I'm not speaking of a legal record. I'm speaking of a body." "Whose body?" "My husband's, or someone else's. I no longer know." That got my attention. It got Wolfe's too, though you had to know him to see it. His lips pressed, his eyes opened a fraction wider. "Explain." She did, though not neatly. Horace Vane had been placed in the Vane Mausoleum in Greenwood after a private funeral. Last week a family matter required the vault opened. She was not present, but her stepson was. He said the coffin was there, sealed and undisturbed. Yesterday she received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph of Horace Vane lying in a plain wooden box, with a date stamped on the margin 6 weeks after the funeral. "Forgery," I said. "I thought so," she replied. "Then I saw the ring on his left hand. He wore it always, even during surgery. It was buried with him. I know that ring." Wolfe grunted. "You have shown this to no one else?" "To one man. He advised discretion because scandal would injure the family." "His name?" "Milton Core. Attorney. Smooth, careful, and the kind of man who could lend sympathy without risking ownership." Wolfe asked who had access to the vault, who knew it had been opened, and whether Horace Vane had left enemies likely to enjoy desecration. She answered clearly, and every answer tightened the room. When she finished, Wolfe leaned back the quarter-inch he permitted for emphasis. "Mrs. Vane," he said, "I dislike exhumations, melodrama, and rich families. However, I dislike being offered a corpse that may have attended 2 funerals even more. Mr. Goodwin will take your photograph." That meant he had the case, though he had not admitted it. It also meant my week had just been buried once, and maybe twice. I took the photograph from her with 2 fingers, the way you handle something that might either smear or bite. It was an 8 by 10, professionally done or convincingly faked, and the man in the box was Horace Vane as I remembered him from the papers. Long face, narrow lips, the kind of expression that suggests he never quite forgave the world for existing. The ring was there, heavy and unmistakable, catching the light like it had a right to be seen. "When did this arrive?" I asked. "Yesterday morning, delivered by hand." No messenger waited. "Envelope?" "At home. I brought it." "Good," I said. "We'll want that." Wolfe made a small sound. "Mr. Goodwin will examine it," he said. "You will also provide a list of those present at the funeral, those with access to the mausoleum, and those who would benefit from confusion regarding your husband's remains. She hesitated. "De benefit." "Confusion is rarely gratuitous," Wolfe said. "It is cultivated. Someone wishes you to believe something. That is a benefit." She looked at him for a long second, then nodded. "I will have the list by this afternoon." "Have it now," Wolfe said. "I don't carry such things." "Then dictate it. Mr. Goodwin writes quickly when properly motivated." I took out a pad. She dictated 5 names before her voice tightened. Milton Core, as expected. Leonard Vane, the stepson. Dr. Basil Croft, who had signed the death certificate. Agnes Delroy, Horace's secretary for 20 years, and a man I didn't know, Peter Rask, listed as a family associate. "Associate of what?" I asked. "Of my husband's interests," she said. "That's a polite way of saying something impolite," I told her. Wolfe opened his eyes a fraction. "Proceed." She gave addresses, the habits where she could, and a final detail. The vault had been opened at Leonard's request, with Core present. When she finished, Wolfe said, "Mr. Goodwin will accompany you to your residence to examine the envelope and to ask further questions. Do not discuss this matter with anyone, not even Mr. Core." A flicker of something crossed her face. Relief or fear, it was too early to tell. She rose, gave Wolfe a look that might have been gratitude if it had softened by half an inch, and turned to me. "Now." "Now," I said, grabbing my hat. As we reached the door, Wolfe spoke again. "Mrs. Vane." She stopped. "If your husband has indeed been buried twice, the second burial was not for his benefit. Consider who profits from his continued presence, even in absence." She nodded once and went out. In the cab downtown, she sat angled away from me, and watching the city like it owed her an explanation. I watched her instead. People who bring you puzzles that involve dead husbands and photographs usually carry an extra piece they haven't mentioned yet. It's a hobby of mine to wait for it. Her house was on East 68th, the kind of place that has more rooms than conversations. A maid let us in and vanished efficiently. Mrs. Vane led me to a study that smelled faintly of polish and something medicinal. "The envelope," she said, handing it over. "Plain, cream, no return address. My name absent because it hadn't been sent to me. Her name was typed, not written." I opened it carefully, though it had already been opened once. No letter, just the photograph I had. The inside flap bore a faint smudge. "Do you mind?" I asked. "Do what you must." I took out my handkerchief and pressed lightly, and the smudge transferred faintly. Ink, not dirt. Cheap ribbon, probably. A typewriter that had seen better days. "Anyone else handle this?" I asked. "My stepson. Briefly." "Gloves?" "No." "Good," I said. "Or bad, depending." I walked the room. Desk, locked drawers, a cabinet with files, a photograph of Horace Vane standing beside a man I recognized after a second. Milton Core, younger, smiling like he had just agreed to something profitable. "Tell me about your husband's death," I said. "Cardiac failure. Sudden. Dr. Croft attended." "Attended before or after?" She didn't like that. "After. He was called." "Who called him?" "My stepson." "Convenient," I said. She stiffened. "Leonard had no reason. Everyone has reasons," I said. "They just vary in how well they hide." She turned away, then back. "You think the photograph is real?" "I think someone wants it to be," I said. "That's more important." There was a sound in the hall, light, careful, not a servant. I moved to the door and opened it. A man stood there, mid-40s, well-dressed, expression arranged to suggest patience. "Mrs. Vane," he said, "I understood you had a visitor." "I do," she said. "Mr. Goodwin." He looked at me, measuring. "Milton Core." "I had a feeling," I said. He smiled politely, which told me nothing except that he practiced. Mrs. Vane, I must advise. She has been advised, I said, by someone who charges less per hour. His eyes flicked to the envelope in my hand, then back to me. I would appreciate being kept informed. I would appreciate a lot of things, I said. Most of them aren't my business. Mrs. Vane spoke before he could answer. Mr. Core, I will handle this. He inclined his head, just enough. Of course. To me, Mr. Goodwin. He left without hurry. That told me he wasn't worried. Not yet. I closed the door and turned back to her. You didn't mention he'd drop by. I didn't know he would. Now you do, I said, which means someone told him. She went pale. You think... I think the circle just got smaller, I said, and tighter. I took another look at the photograph, then at the room, then at her. One more thing, I said. When the vault was opened, did anyone besides your stepson and Core see inside? No. They said it was unnecessary. Unnecessary, I repeated. That's my favorite word. It usually means someone is saving us trouble by keeping the truth out of sight. I folded the envelope and slipped it into my pocket. Let's go see your stepson, I said. I'd like to hear how a man looks at a coffin and decides it contains what it's supposed to. Leonard Vane received us in a sitting room that tried too hard to look unconcerned. It had low chairs, expensive rugs, and the kind of lighting that flatters faces by not committing to them. He stood when we entered, which I credited him for. He didn't offer his hand, which I credited him for more. He was in his early 30s, clean-cut, with a calm that looked practiced rather than earned. If he had been surprised to see me, he didn't show it. If he had been displeased to see Mrs. Vane, he didn't bother hiding that quite as well. I wasn't told we had an appointment, he said. You didn't, I told him. But we have a question, and you have an answer. That's usually enough. Mrs. Vane remained standing. Leonard, I've engaged Nero Wolfe. His eyes shifted slightly at that. Recognition or calculation, possibly both. That seems excessive. Not if my husband has been buried twice. He let out a short breath that might have been a laugh if it had committed itself. We've been through this. The coffin was in place, sealed, undisturbed. You looked inside, I asked. No, he said. There was no need. Right, I said. You're a man who trusts boxes. His jaw tightened just enough to suggest he didn't enjoy being handled. Mr. Goodwin, I don't require appreciation, I said. Just clarity. When you opened the vault, who unlocked the coffin? No one. Who verified the seal? It was intact. By whose standards? He hesitated. That was the first useful thing he'd done. Mr. Core was present. Mr. A Core seems to be present for a lot of things, I said. Does he also think boxes are self-explanatory? Mrs. Vane stepped in. Leonard, I received a photograph. He turned to her. What photograph? She looked at me. I took it out and handed it to him. He studied it longer than I expected. Not shock, not outrage. Something else. Recognition, maybe. Or memory. Then he handed it back. Forgery, he said. You're sure? I asked. Yes. Because you've seen your father look like that before? His eyes snapped to mine. What does that mean? It means, I said, that if someone wanted to fake this, they'd need access to a body that looks a lot like Horace Vane. That's either a coincidence or a resource. Mrs. Vane's voice came quieter. Leonard, did you arrange anything after the funeral? Anything at all? No, he said sharply. I arranged the burial. That's all? Through whom? The family service. Croft handled the paperwork. Croft signs things, I said. He doesn't carry coffins. Who handled the transfer from hospital to vault? I didn't supervise it personally. Who did? I don't know, That's interesting, I said. Most men like to know where their father ends up. His composure slipped a fraction. Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking questions, I said. If I were accusing you, you'd know. There was a pause that stretched just enough to feel like something might break if pushed harder. I didn't push yet. Timing is everything, and Wolfe had taught me that patience isn't the absence of movement. It's the control of it. Let's try this another way, I said. When the vault was opened last week, whose idea was it? Mine, he said. Why? A family inventory required confirmation of interments. That sounds like something Mr. Core would say, I told him. It's accurate. Maybe, I said. But it doesn't explain why you didn't look inside. He didn't answer immediately. That was the second useful thing he'd done. Mrs. Vane watched him now with something that wasn't quite suspicion yet, but was on its way. Leonard, she said, if there is anything. There isn't, he cut in. Then prove it, I said. Open the coffin. Again. This time with witnesses who aren't being paid to be comfortable. His eyes narrowed. Absolutely not. Why not? Because it's grotesque. Grotesque is burying a man twice, I said. Opening a box is just inconvenient. He stood very still, then said, I will not permit it. Permit is a strong word, I said. So it implies control. I have it. For now, I said. Mrs. Vane spoke again, firmer this time. Leonard, I insist. He turned to her, and for a moment the practiced calm dropped entirely. What showed underneath wasn't guilt, not cleanly. It was fear, but not of us. Of something else, something already in motion. You don't understand, he said. Then explain, she said. I can't. That's not the same thing. No, he said quietly. It isn't. That was enough for me. Not proof, but direction. I slipped the photograph back into my pocket and adjusted my hat. Fine, I said. We'll do it the long way. What does that mean? He asked. It means, I said, we stop asking what's in the coffin and start asking who benefits from nobody looking. I turned to Mrs. Vane. We're done here. For now. She hesitated, then nodded. Then Leonard didn't try to stop us. That told me more than anything he had said. Back in the cab, she sat closer to the window this time, but her attention wasn't on the street anymore. It was on something internal, something rearranging itself. You think he knows, she said. I think he knows something, I said, and I think he's more afraid of saying it than of being wrong. Afraid of what? Good question, I said. Let's find someone who answers those. Who? Dr. Croft, I said. He signed your husband out of the world. I'd like to know how careful he was about it. She nodded slowly. And if he wasn't? Then your husband may have been buried once, I said, and replaced once, which makes your photograph less impossible and more expensive. She turned to me fully now. Expensive? Everything like this is, I said, especially the truth. When we reached the curb, I paid the driver and stepped out first. As I helped her down, I had the feeling, not strong yet, but persistent, that we weren't the only ones moving pieces. Someone else had started this game before we knew there was a board. Dr. Basil Croft kept his office on Lexington, 3 floors up in a building that smelled faintly of antiseptic and old decisions. The waiting room was empty, which I liked. Empty rooms don't listen. His nurse tried to slow us down with a polite smile and a clipboard, but I gave her mine in return and kept moving. There are moments when courtesy is just delay wearing a clean collar. This wasn't one of them. Croft was in his office, seated behind a desk that had seen better days and worse secrets. He was thin, careful. Shivan had the kind of eyes that count before they answer. When we entered, he didn't rise. He didn't have to. Authority sat on him like a habit. Mrs. Vane, he said, acknowledging her with a nod. And you are? Archie Goodwin, I told him. I work for Nero Wolfe. That landed. Not heavily, but enough to register. I see, he said. To what do I owe the visit? You signed Horace Vane's death certificate, I said. Yes. I'd like to know how sure you were. His expression didn't change, which meant he had practice. Quite sure. Cardiac failure. Sudden onset. You saw the body? Of course. When? Shortly after I was called. By whom? Mr. Leonard Vane. That's consistent, I said. Where was the body when you saw it? At the residence, in his bedroom. Anyone else present? Mr. Vane, the house staff. Later, Mr. Did you examine the body thoroughly? I performed a standard examination appropriate to the circumstances. That's a careful sentence, I said. What does it mean? It means, he said, a shade cooler, that there was no indication of foul play and the cause of death was evident. Evident is a word that depends on who's looking, I said. Did you verify identity? Mrs. Vane shifted slightly beside me. Croft noticed. The deceased was known to me, he said. I had treated him for years. So you recognized him? Yes. Without hesitation. Without hesitation. I let that sit for a moment. Then I took out the photograph and placed it on his desk. He looked at it. Not long, not short. Just enough. Then he looked up. Forgery, he said. That's a popular opinion today, I told him. You're sure? Yes. Because? Because Mr. Vane was interred immediately following certification. There was no opportunity for this. Opportunity is a flexible thing, I said. Depends on who's holding it. Mrs. Vane spoke, her voice tight. Doctor, if there were any irregularities, any doubt at all, you must tell me. There were none, he said. Did you remain with the body after certification? I asked. No. Who took custody? The funeral service. Which one? He hesitated, just a fraction. I would have to check my records. That's all right, I said. We can wait. He didn't like that. He opened a drawer, took out a ledger, and flipped through it with fingers that were steady enough to pass inspection, but not enough to convince me. Rutherford and Hale, he said finally. Good, I said. We'll visit them next. There is no need, he said quickly. Their procedures are impeccable. I'm sure they say so, I replied. Most people do, right before they're wrong. He closed the ledger. Mr. Goodwin, I must object to the implication. You can object all you like, I said. It won't change the question. And what question is that? Whether the man you certified is the man in that photograph, I said. His eyes held mine. For a second, just a second, something moved there. Not guilt, not fear. Something closer to calculation, as if he were adjusting a number he didn't like. I'm certain of my certification, he said. Certainty is comfortable, I said. Truth is less so. I picked up the photograph and slipped it back into my pocket. One more thing, Doctor. When you examined Mr. Vane, did you notice the ring? The ring? On his left hand. He wore it always. Yes, he said. Han, I recall it. You're sure? Yes. Good, I said, because it's in the photograph. That proves nothing, he said. No, I agreed. It just narrows the options. We stood. Mrs. Vane gave him a look that asked for something he wasn't going to give. He returned it with professional regret, which is the cheapest kind. Out in the hall, she let out a breath she'd been holding since we entered. He's hiding something, she said. Maybe, I said. Or maybe he's just protecting his signature. Doctors don't like to be wrong about death. It ruins their reputation. You don't believe him? I believe he saw a body, I said. I'm not sure whose. We headed for the stairs. Elevators are for people who aren't thinking. Rutherford and Hale, she said. If they handled the body, then they're either part of this, I said, or they're about to wish they were. What do you expect to find? A gap, I said. Something small enough to be ignored and big enough to matter. And if there isn't one? There is, I said. There always is. That's where people live. Outside, the air had turned sharper, the kind that makes you notice things you'd rather not. I lit a cigarette and watched the smoke for a second before speaking again. There's a pattern starting, I said. Core advises silence. Leonard refuses to open the coffin. Croft certifies without doubt. That's 3 men who prefer the box closed. And you think they're connected? I think they're aligned, I said. Connection comes later. We got into another cab. As it pulled away, I glanced back at the building. Croft's window was on the 3rd floor. The shade had moved slightly. He's watching, I said. Yes, of course he is, she replied. Good, I said. Let him. Because if there's one thing that makes a man uncomfortable, it's not being seen. It's knowing he's been noticed. As the cab turned onto Lexington, I had the feeling again, that quiet, persistent one, that the board was already set and we were just now learning the rules. Rutherford and Hale occupied a narrow frontage on 34th, the kind of place that did its best work behind doors it preferred not to open. The sign was modest, the windows discreet, and the air inside carried that careful blend of polish and finality that suggests business conducted without interruption from the living. A man at the front desk looked up as we entered. He had the face of someone who had learned long ago that expression was optional. Good afternoon, he said. How may we assist you? I'd like to know how you handled Horace Vane, I told him. That got a pause. Not long, but enough to register. One moment, he said, and disappeared through a door marked private. Mrs. Vane stood beside me, hands clasped tighter than before. She wasn't looking around. She was listening, to footsteps, to silence, to whatever memory she had of this place from 14 months ago. A different man came out, older, heavier, with a manner that suggested he was used to smoothing things before they became problems. I'm Mr. Hale, he said. I understand you have an inquiry regarding Mr. Vane. That's right, I said. I want to know how his body moved from residence to vault and who handled it at each stage. We maintain thorough records, he said. However, such details are typically necessary, I said. It's today. He studied me, then Mrs. Vane, then back to me. He made a decision. Very well, he said. If you'll come this way. He led us into a back office, smaller, less polished, with a desk that held a ledger large enough to anchor a boat. He opened it with care, turning pages like they might object. Mr. Vane, he said, running a finger down a column, received at residence, certified by Dr. Croft, transferred to our custody at 10:40 p.m., transported to facility, prepared for interment, placed in family vault the following morning. Who received the body at the residence? I asked. Our staff, he said. 2 attendants. Names? He hesitated. That information is internal. Not today, I said. Mrs. Vane spoke quietly. Mr. Hale, I require this. He glanced at her, then back at the ledger. Thomas Ebbing and Daniel Price. Are they still employed here? Ebbing is. Price is not. Why not? He left our employ 3 months ago. Voluntarily? Yes. Address? I'm afraid. I leaned forward slightly. You're afraid of the wrong things, Mr. Hale. He didn't like that, but he wrote something on a slip of paper and slid it across. Last known address. I took it. Good. Now, when your men took custody, who was present? Mr. Leonard Vane. Anyone else? He checked the ledger. No. No, Mr. Core. Not at that time. I nodded. And after that, any irregularities? None, he said firmly. Our procedures are precise. Precise is another comfortable word, I said. Let's try a less comfortable one. Did the body remain in your custody at all times from receipt to burial? Yes. Without interruption. Yes. Without substitution. His eyes hardened slightly. Mr. Goodwin. It's a simple question, I said. It is also an offensive one. Those are often the useful kind. He closed the ledger with more force than necessary. Our reputation depends on being right, I finished. I know. So does everyone else's in this case. There was a silence that sat heavy for a second. Then Mrs. Vane spoke again. Mr. Hale, please. He looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. Not guilt, not exactly. More like reluctance, acknowledging possibility. There was a delay, he said. I straightened. What kind of delay? Minor, he said quickly. A scheduling issue, when the body remained in our receiving room longer than usual before preparation. How long? Approximately 4 hours. And during those 4 hours, it was secured. By whom? Staff. Which staff? He hesitated again. That made 2. I liked patterns. Mr. Price was on duty, he said. Alone? No. Mr. Ebbing was present intermittently. Intermittently, I repeated. That's a flexible arrangement. It is standard, he said. Standard is starting to sound like trouble, I told him. I stood. We'll need to speak with Ebbing. He's on shift today, Hale said. Good, I said. Let's not interrupt his routine. Ebbing was in a room that didn't bother pretending to be anything but functional. He was younger than I expected, with hands that knew their work and eyes that wished they didn't have to explain it. Mr. Ebbing, I said. We're asking about Horace Vane. He glanced at Hale, then at me. I remember, he said. Good, I said. Walk me through it. He did, carefully. Receipt, placement, waiting. The 4-hour gap. Anything unusual? I asked. No, he said. Nothing at all. No. Did you leave the room? Briefly. How briefly? A few minutes. Who was with the body then? Price. Alone? Yes. I let that sit. And when you returned? Everything was as it had been. Exactly as it had been. Yes. I nodded slowly. That's interesting. Why? He asked. Because, I said, in my experience, things that stay exactly the same are usually the ones that have changed the most. He didn't answer that. He didn't have to. Back in the front room, I folded the slip of paper with Price's address and tucked it away. Mrs. Vane looked at me. You think... I think, I said, we just found our gap. And Price? Is either very unlucky, I said, or very important. As we stepped outside, the afternoon had deepened into something sharper, more defined. The city was moving, but it felt like it was watching too. Where now? She asked. I looked at the address in my pocket, then up the street. Now, I said, we find Daniel Price. Because if a man spends a few minutes alone with a body that might not be what it's supposed to be, those minutes tend to leave a mark. Daniel Price's last known address turned out to be on the west side, in a building that had given up pretending it would ever be respectable again. The kind of place where the hallway smells like boiled cabbage and decisions you can't reverse. We climbed 2 flights because the elevator had retired early. Mrs. Vane stayed half a step behind me, not from fear, but from something closer to resolve. She had stopped asking questions. That was either progress or surrender. I hadn't decided which. Apartment 3B had a door that had been painted too many times and still looked unfinished. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Footsteps. Slow, reluctant. The door opened a few inches and stopped on a chain. A man looked out. Mid-30s, maybe. Tired in a way that doesn't come from sleep. His eyes flicked from me to Mrs. Vane and back again. "Yeah?" he said. "Daniel Price," I asked. "Who wants to know?" "Archie Goodwin. This is Mrs. Vane." That did it. Recognition landed hard enough to show. Not surprise. Something worse. Expectation. "I don't want trouble," he said. "Then you're already ahead of us," I told him. "We just want a conversation." He hesitated, then shut the door. The chain rattled, and it opened fully. "Make it quick." Inside was a room that had been arranged for necessity, not comfort. A table, 2 chairs, a bed that had seen better discipline. No pictures, no distractions. People who live like that either don't plan to stay or don't want to remember. He didn't offer us seats. I took one anyway. Mrs. Vane remained standing. "You worked for Rutherford and Hale," I said. "Used to?" "You handled Horace Vane." His jaw tightened. "Yeah." "I want to know about the 4 hours." He didn't answer immediately. His eyes moved, not to us, but to the window, then back. "There's nothing to know," he said. "That's not how it looks," I told him. "It looks like you were alone with a body that may not have stayed the same." "I didn't touch it," he said quickly. "I didn't ask if you did," I said. "I asked what happened." "Nothing happened." Mrs. Vane stepped forward. "Mr. Price, please. If there is anything at all, you must tell us." He looked at her then. Really looked. Whatever he saw there shifted something. Not enough to make him comfortable, but enough to make him less certain of staying silent. "I told them," he said quietly. "Told who?" I asked. "My supervisor. After." "After what?" He swallowed. "After I came back." "Came back from where?" I stepped out, just for a minute. "A minute," I repeated. "That's a popular length of time in this case." "When I got back," he said. The room felt different. I leaned back slightly. "Different how?" "I don't know," he said, unfrustrated. "Just off, like when someone's been in your place and moved something you can't point to." "That's a useful feeling," I said. "What did you do?" "I checked the tag, the paperwork. Everything matched." "And the body?" He hesitated. Longer this time. "I didn't open the lid," he said. "Why not?" "Because I wasn't supposed to. That hasn't stopped anyone else today," I said. He rubbed his face with both hands. "You don't understand. You don't just open those. Not without cause." "You had cause," I said. "You just didn't use it." He dropped his hands. "I told Hale. He said it was nothing, that I was imagining things." "Were you?" I asked. He looked at me, and for the first time there was something solid there. Not fear, not evasion. Something closer to certainty. And he didn't like it. "No," he said. Silence settled in the room. Not empty. Waiting. Mrs. Vane spoke, softer now. "Mr. Price, if the body was chained, if it was not my husband—" "I didn't say that," he said quickly. "You didn't have to," I told him. He stood abruptly, pacing once across the small space and back again. "Look, I don't know what happened. I'm telling you what I felt. That's it." "Feelings don't leave jobs," I said. "Something else did." "Why did you leave?" He stopped. "I got another offer." "Doing what?" "Different work." "Where?" "That's none of your business." "It is if it connects," I said. "It doesn't." "You're sure?" "Yes." I watched him for a second, then nodded. "All right, let's try something simpler. Who knew you were alone with the body?" "No one." "Not even Ebbing?" "He was in and out. So someone watching the schedule would know." "I guess. And someone with access could have used that." He didn't answer. Mrs. Vane took a step closer. "Mr. Price, Did anyone approach you afterward? Ask questions? Offer anything? He hesitated again. That made 3. Patterns were starting to look like structure. No, he said. I didn't believe him. Not completely. But belief is a luxury. What matters is movement. I stood. All right, Mr. Price. That's enough for now. He looked relieved. That was also useful. As we moved to the door, I paused. One more thing, I said. If you remember anything else, anything at all, you call me. I don't have your number. You will, I said, and handed him a card. And he took it like it might cost him something later. Out in the hallway, Mrs. Vane exhaled slowly. He knows more. Yes, I said. But he won't say it. Not yet, I said. People like Price don't keep secrets for pride. They keep them because someone gave them a reason. What kind of reason? The kind that doesn't show up in ledgers, I said. We went down the stairs in silence. Outside, the street felt narrower than before. What now? She asked. I looked at her, then at the city, then at the pattern that had started to take shape in my head. Now, I said, we go back to Wolfe. And tell him what? That the body may have changed hands in 4 minutes, I said. That 3 men prefer not to look too closely, and that someone knew exactly when not to be watched. She nodded slowly. And what will he do? I allowed myself a small smile. He'll sit in his chair, I said, and make it impossible for them not to look. By the time we reached the brownstone, it was late afternoon, the hour when Wolfe expects the world to behave or stay away. We entered quietly, which is to say I entered quietly, and Mrs. Vane tried. Fritz appeared from nowhere, took her coat with a glance that measured dust, and vanished again with the efficiency of a man who believes disorder is a moral failing. Wolfe was in the office, exactly where we had left him, which is to say precisely where he intended to be. He didn't look up when we entered. He finished reading a page, placed it carefully on the desk, and only then raised his eyes. Report, he said. I sat. Mrs. Vane remained standing until Wolfe flicked 2 fingers toward a chair. She obeyed. We have a gap, I said. 4 hours between receipt and preparation. During that time, Daniel Price was alone with the body for a few minutes. He left the room, came back, and felt something had changed. Didn't open the coffin. Told his supervisor. Was told it was nothing. Left the job 3 months ago. Wolfe nodded once. Proceed. Leonard Vane refuses to open the coffin again. Says it's grotesque. Looked scared of something, not of us. Core advises silence and appears wherever silence is useful. Croft certifies without doubt, but hesitated on the funeral service name. Remembered the ring, which matches the photograph. I took out the photograph and placed it on the desk. Wolfe glanced at it, then at me. And Mrs. Vane received this yesterday, I said. Hand-delivered, no return address. Typed envelope, cheap ribbon, smudge on the flap. Oh, someone wanted her to see it now. Wolfe steepled his fingers. Indeed. Mrs. Vane leaned forward. Mr. Wolfe, you believe the body was changed. I believe, Wolfe said, that 3 men prefer a closed container. 1 man perceived a disturbance and was discouraged, and an image has been introduced to create doubt at a specific moment. These facts are incompatible with routine. That's not an answer, she said. It is the beginning of one, he replied. I lit a cigarette and watched him. This was the part where he moved pieces without appearing to touch them. Mr. Goodwin, he said, list the suspects. I did. Leonard Vane, who requested the vault opening and refuses to verify contents. Milton Core, who manages the family's discomfort and advises silence. Dr. Croft, who certified the death and prefers his certainty intact. Daniel Price, son who had opportunity and claims only intuition. Thomas Ebbing, who was intermittently present and noticed nothing. And Peter Rask, the associate, who hasn't appeared yet but is connected. Wolfe closed his eyes briefly. 5 primary actors, 1 peripheral. Motive must be assigned, method inferred, opportunity confirmed. We have partial data for each. He opened his eyes again. What is the value of a body, Mr. Goodwin? Depends on who wants it, I said. Precisely. A body may conceal, reveal, or substitute. In this case, the assertion is duplication, burial twice. That suggests either removal after interment or substitution prior to it. Price gives us the window for substitution, I said. Or for removal, Wolfe countered. Do not exclude alternatives prematurely. Mrs. Vane spoke, her voice steady now. Who would do such a thing? Wolfe looked at her. Someone for whom the presence or absence of your husband's body alters a condition of advantage. That's vague, she said. It is necessarily so, Wolfe replied. Specificity requires leverage. He turned to me. We will create it. How? I asked. By disturbing the equilibrium, he said. See, each participant currently benefits from ambiguity. We will remove it. I grinned slightly. You're going to make them look. I'm going to make them unable to refuse to look, he said. There is a distinction. He reached for the telephone and dialed. Mr. Panzer, he said when it was answered. I require immediate attention. Yes. Discreet observation of Leonard Vane, Milton Core, and Dr. Basil Croft. I will provide addresses. Note all contacts, particularly any communication among them. Report within the hour. He replaced the receiver. Saul will watch, he said. Meanwhile, we will act. On which front? I asked. All, he said. Mr. Goodwin, you will return to Mr. Price this evening. Why? Because he has not told you everything, Wolfe said. He has been approached. He has received either inducement or warning. His reluctance is not professional. It is personal. I thought so, I said. Confirm it, Wolfe said. Do not press directly. Allow him to disclose by implication. And the others? I will invite them, Wolfe said. Mrs. Vane looked at him. Invite? Yes, he said. To this room. Tomorrow. They won't come. They will, Wolfe said. You will request it. And you will inform them that you intend to open the coffin in their presence unless they attend here first to explain why that would be unnecessary. She stared at him. You're forcing them. I am offering them an alternative, Wolfe said. Men prefer to speak rather than be contradicted by evidence. I leaned back. And if they refuse? Then the coffin will be opened, Wolfe said. Publicly, if required. Their refusal will become conspicuous. Conspicuity is uncomfortable. Mrs. Vane nodded slowly. I can do that. You must do it precisely, Wolfe said. No deviation, no embellishment. I understand. Wolfe inclined his head. Good. He turned to me again. Mr. Goodwin, one more matter. The photograph. Yeah? It is not merely evidence, he said. It is a message. Determine its origin. Typewriter. Cheap ribbon. The hand delivery, I said. Could be anyone. Then reduce anyone, Wolfe said. Who benefits from Mrs. Vane's agitation at this moment? I thought about it. Core, maybe, if he wanted control. Leonard, if he wanted to delay something. Croft, unlikely. Rask, unknown. I'll start narrowing, I said. Wolfe nodded. Do so. There was a pause, the kind that settles when a plan has been set and is waiting to be executed. Mrs. Vane rose. I will contact them, she said. Fritz appeared as if summoned by the idea of departure, not the act. He took her coat again, this time with less judgment. At the door, she turned back. Mr. Wolfe, if the body is not my husband's, then we will determine whose it is, Wolfe said, and why it was placed there. She held his gaze for a second, then left. I looked at Wolfe. You think it's substitution before burial? I think it is the simplest mechanism, he said. Simplicity is often preferred by those who require reliability. And the second burial? A fiction, he said, or a misdirection. I stood. I'll go see Price again. Do so, Wolfe said. And Mr. Goodwin. Yeah? Do not underestimate fear, he said. It is the most efficient custodian of secrets. I nodded. I've noticed. As I headed for the door, the brownstone felt quieter than usual. Not peaceful, contained. Like something had been set in motion that would either resolve neatly or not at all. And knowing Wolfe, it wasn't going to be left to chance. By the time I got back to Price's building, the light had thinned into that grey stretch where the city looks undecided about its intentions. I took the stairs again. Elevators, like answers. Those are unreliable when you need them most. I didn't knock right away. I listened first. No voices, no movement. Then I knocked once, firm. The door opened faster this time. No chain. You again, Price said. Not surprised, not pleased either. Me again, I said. Mind if I come in, or do you want to pretend we're done? He stepped aside. That was permission enough. The room hadn't changed, which told me he hadn't moved since we left. That, or he'd put everything back exactly where it had been. Either way, it wasn't comfortable. You forgot something? He asked. No, I said. You did. He frowned. I told you everything. No, I said. You told me what you can afford. I'm here for what you can't. He didn't answer that. He didn't sit either. He stayed standing like he might need to move quickly if the room turned on him. Someone spoke to you after that night, I said. After the 4 hours. After you noticed something was wrong. No one. Don't, I said. You're not good enough at it. That landed. Not hard, but enough. He ran a hand through his hair. You don't understand what you're asking. I understand it better than you think, I said, because I know how this works. Someone knew you'd be alone. Someone used that window, and someone made sure you wouldn't talk about it afterward. I didn't say that. You didn't have to, I said again. Silence. He looked at the door, then at the window, then back at me. People do that when they're measuring exits. Was it money? I asked. Or was it something else? He let out a breath that had been waiting longer than we had. It wasn't money. Good, I said. That means it matters. He laughed once, without humor. You think that makes it better? No, I said. Just clearer. He sat finally, on the edge of the chair like it might not hold him. He came to see me, Price said. Who? I don't know his name. That's not helpful. He didn't give one, Price said. And I didn't ask. Describe him. Mid-40s, clean, not like me, like someone who doesn't have to explain himself. That's half the city, I said. Try harder. Price closed his eyes briefly. Grey coat. Gloves. Spoke quiet, like he didn't need to raise his voice to be heard. What did he want? He wanted to know what I saw. And what did you tell him? Nothing, Price said quickly. I said nothing. And he believed you? No, Price said. He didn't. What did he do? Price looked at me then. Really looked. Like he was deciding whether I was worth the trouble of honesty. He told me, Price said slowly, that sometimes it's better not to know what you're carrying. That's a friendly warning, I said. He wasn't being friendly. No, I agreed. He wasn't. Mrs. Vane's voice echoed in my head. Who would do such a thing? And for the first time I had a shape to go with the question. Did he mention the body? I asked. No. The photograph? No. Then what was the point? He wanted to see if I'd say it, Price said, if I'd open my mouth and make it real. And you didn't. I didn't, he said. Good, I said. That means you're still useful. He didn't like that. I'm not part of this. You were, I said. You just didn't know it at the time. He stood again, restless. What do you want from me? Everything you haven't said yet, I told him. Start with the room. When you came back and it felt different, what exactly was different? He hesitated, then spoke slowly. The air. The air, I repeated. Yeah, he said. It was colder, not temperature, just still, like it had been closed up for longer than it should have been. That's not nothing, I said. I told you. What about the coffin? I said. Anything about it? He swallowed. The lid. What about it? It was cleaner. I leaned forward. Cleaner how? Like it had been wiped, he said. Not dirty before, just less marked. That's something, I said. That's someone opening it and closing it again. I didn't say that. You didn't have to, I said for the third time. Patterns matter. He shook his head. I didn't see it happen. No, I said, but you saw the result. There was a knock at the door. Not loud, not hesitant either, just precise. Price froze. Expecting someone? I asked. No, he said. I moved to the door before he could. Opened it. A man stood there. Mid-40s. Grey coat. Gloves. He looked at me, then past me, into the room. Mr. Price, he said, voice quiet, controlled. I believe we spoke. I smiled slightly. You're a little late, I said. We're already ahead of you. His eyes shifted to mine. Measured, calculating. Who are you? He asked. Archie Goodwin, I said. I ask questions for a living. And answer them? He said. Sometimes, I replied, when it's worth it. He stepped forward half an inch, not enough to enter, just enough to suggest he could. This matter does not concern you, he said. That's interesting, I said. Because it concerns a body that might not be where it's supposed to be, and I have a client who would disagree with you. He held my gaze. Your client would be advised to let certain matters remain settled. Settled is another one of those words, I said. Like standard, like necessary. Behind me, I could feel Price not moving at all. That was fear doing its job. Who are you? I asked. He smiled slightly. Not friendly, not hostile, just controlled. A man who prefers things as they are, he said. That makes two of you, I said. Unfortunately, we're in the minority. There was a pause. Then he inclined his head, just enough. Be careful, Mr. Goodwin, he said. Some arrangements are not meant to be disturbed. I've heard that before, I said. Usually right before they are. He turned and walked away, the footsteps measured, unhurried. I closed the door and turned back to Price. Well, I said, that's one of them. Price sank into the chair again. You see now? Yeah, I said. I see. I took out my cigarette, lit it, and watched the smoke curl. He didn't come to check on you, I said. He came to see if you'd started talking. And now? Now he knows you have, I said. Price looked up, panic starting to edge in. What does that mean? It means, I said, you're no longer just a witness. He swallowed. Then what am I? I flicked ash into the tray and met his eyes. You're part of the reason they're going to have to come to Nero Wolfe tomorrow, I said. Price didn't say anything for a long moment after that. He just sat there, hands flat on his knees, staring at something that wasn't in the room anymore. When people reach that point, so they're not deciding whether to act, they're deciding whether they already have. You're not leaving me in this, he said finally. I'm not leaving you anywhere, I told him. You're already in it. The question is whether you stay quiet and let someone else decide how it ends, or you move and get ahead of it. That man, he began, is one of the reasons you don't get to pretend this is over, I said. He came back because something changed. That something is me. Which means he'll report that to whoever sent him. And then what? Then they adjust, I said. People like that don't panic. They reposition. He let out a breath. You talk like this is a game. It is, I said. Just not one where losing is polite. I stood and crossed to the window, glanced out, then back. Taz, you're coming with me tomorrow. Where? To Nero Wolfe's office. He shook his head immediately. No. Yes, I said. Because you're the only one who can say what that room felt like. You're the only one who can say the lid looked wrong. That matters. I don't want to be part of it. You already are, I said again. You were the moment you walked back into that room and noticed something had changed. He pressed his lips together. What if they come back? They will, I said. Which is why you don't stay here alone. That landed. He looked around the room like it had suddenly lost its neutrality. Where do I go? He asked. You come with me now, I said. You spend the night somewhere they're not expecting, and in the morning you sit in a chair and answer questions. And if I don't? Then you sit here, I said, and wait for someone who doesn't knock as politely. He didn't argue after that. He got a coat, not bothering to check if it matched the weather. That told me he was past details. We left together. I didn't see the man in the grey coat on the street, but that didn't mean he wasn't there. People like him don't need to be seen to be present. I put Price in a cab and gave the driver an address that wasn't his and wasn't mine. A place where Saul Panzer could keep an eye without asking questions out loud. When the cab pulled away, I stood for a second and watched it go, then turned and headed back toward the brownstone. The city had settled into evening by then, lights coming on in windows that had their own problems and didn't know about ours. I walked the last few blocks. It helps to think. Wolfe was where I expected him to be. Which was still in his chair, but the room had shifted. Papers arranged differently, a glass on the desk, the sense that things had been moving even without me. Report, he said as I entered. I found our man in the grey coat, I said. Or he found me. Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly. Describe. I did. Mid-40s, controlled, quiet, precise. Came back to check on Price. Warned without threatening directly. Knew enough to be dangerous and enough to be careful. Interesting, Wolfe said. And Mr. Price? He talked, I said. Not all of it, but enough. He left the room, came back, said the air felt wrong. The lid looked cleaner, like it had been handled. He told Hale, was dismissed. Then the grey coat paid him a visit later and made sure he understood the value of silence. Wolfe nodded slowly. As expected. I'm bringing him in tomorrow, I said. Good, Wolfe said. He will be useful. He's also scared, I said. Fear sharpens recollection, Wolfe replied. If properly directed. I sat. Saw? Has reported, Wolfe said. Mr. Core has made 2 telephone calls since this afternoon. One to Dr. Croft, one to Mr. Leonard Vane. Both conversations brief, both followed by a period of inactivity. Mr. Vane has remained at his residence. Dr. Croft has cancelled his evening appointments. Circling, I said. Consolidating, Wolfe corrected. They anticipate disturbance. They're right, I said. Wolfe inclined his head. Indeed. There was a pause, the kind that means the next move matters more than the last. Mrs. Vane has contacted them? I asked. Yes, Wolfe said. Each has agreed to attend tomorrow at 11. All of them. All of them, Wolfe said, including Mr. Rask. That got my attention. Rask finally shows up. He does, Wolfe said, which suggests he considers himself central. Or threatened, I said. Possibly both, Wolfe replied. I leaned back. So tomorrow we get them all in one room and you make them look. I will not require them to look, Wolfe said. I will require them to speak. The result will be equivalent. You're sure it's substitution before burial, I said. I'm increasingly certain, Wolfe said. The photograph is not evidence of a second burial. It is evidence of control. Someone possessed the body after death and before interment and wishes it known now. Why now? Because the condition it supports has become unstable, Wolfe said. Mr. Goodwin, now what has changed? I thought about it. The vault opened last week. Leonard saw the coffin but didn't look inside. Then the photograph arrives. Then Core starts making calls. Then Grey Coat checks price again. The vault, I said. Opening it triggered something. Someone got nervous. Precisely, Wolfe said. The opening introduced risk. The photograph was introduced to redirect attention. From what to what? From verification to doubt, Wolfe said. If Mrs. Vane believes the body was removed after burial, she will focus on exhumation. That delays examination of the initial transfer. Which is where the switch happened, I said. Wolfe nodded once. Yes. I exhaled slowly. So tomorrow you walk them through it. I will invite them to do so themselves, Wolfe said. Men prefer to reveal what they believe they control. And if they don't, they will, Wolfe said, because one of them has already made an error. Which one? Wolfe's eyes rested on me for a second. We shall see. I stood. I'll get some sleep. Do so, Wolfe said. You will require clarity. As I headed for the stairs, I glanced back once. Wolfe hadn't moved. He didn't need to. Everything that mattered was already in motion. And tomorrow, for the first time since this started, someone was going to have to explain why a man might be buried once, and replaced once, and why it had taken this long for anyone to notice. At 10 minutes to 11 the next morning, the brownstone had that particular stillness Wolfe prefers when he is about to dismantle something complicated. Fritz had adjusted the chairs in the office twice, which meant he was satisfied. I had adjusted nothing, which meant I was ready. Wolfe sat behind his desk, immovable as ever, hands resting where they could command without effort. I stood by my desk, notebook in reach, cigarette unlit. The air had the kind of tension that doesn't announce itself. It waits. The bell rang at exactly 11. Show them in, Wolfe said. Fritz did. They came in one by one, each carrying his version of composure. Milton Core first, smooth, controlled, already measuring the room. Leonard Vane next, pale but steady, the fear I'd seen yesterday tucked behind something more deliberate. Dr. Croft followed, clinical even now, as if this were another appointment he intended to conclude efficiently. Then Peter Rask. Rask was not what I expected. He was heavier than the others, broader, with a face that had learned to be agreeable without surrendering anything. His eyes moved quickly, not nervously, but with practiced assessment, the kind of man who knows where value sits in a room. Mrs. Vane entered last and took her seat without looking at any of them. Fritz closed the door. Silence held for a second. Then Wolfe spoke. "Gentlemen," he said, "and Mrs. Vane, thank you for attending. You are here because a condition exists which each of you prefers not to examine. I intend to remove that preference." Core inclined his head slightly. "Mr. Wolfe, I must object to—" "You may object later," Wolfe said. "You may even succeed. For now, you will listen." Core subsided. That was his first mistake. Wolfe turned his gaze to Leonard Vane. "Mr. Vane, you requested the opening of your father's vault last week. You observed the coffin and declared it undisturbed. You did not open it." Leonard's jaw tightened. "That is correct." "Why?" "It was unnecessary." "Unnecessary," Wolfe repeated. "A useful word. It allowed you to avoid confirmation." "I had no reason to doubt." "You had every reason," Wolfe said. "You merely declined to employ it." Leonard didn't answer. That was his second mistake. Wolfe shifted his attention to Dr. Croft. "You certified Mr. Vane's death. You recognized the body. You recall the ring. You assert certainty. Yes, Croft said. Yet you hesitated when naming the funeral service, Wolfe said. Why? I did not hesitate. You did, Wolfe said. Mr. Goodwin observed it. I trust his observations. Croft's lips pressed thin. He said nothing. That was his first mistake. Wolfe turned to Core. You advised Mrs. Vane to maintain silence. You communicated with Mr. Vane and Dr. Croft yesterday. You have sought to preserve a condition. Core folded his hands. I have sought to protect my client's interests. Indeed, Wolfe said. Whose interests precisely? Core did not answer. That was his second mistake. Wolfe let the silence extend just enough to tighten. Mr. Rask, he said finally. Rask met his gaze easily. Yes? You have not yet spoken, Wolfe said. You are described as an associate. Of what nature? Business, Rask said. Define business, Wolfe said. Investments, Rask replied. Interests shared with the late Mr. Vane. Shared, Wolfe repeated. Continue. Rask shrugged slightly. There's nothing to continue. Mr. Vane is dead. Perhaps, Wolfe said. That shifted the room. Not visibly, not dramatically. But it moved. Mrs. Vane spoke, her voice steady. Mr. Wolfe. He inclined his head. Madame. Tell them, she said. I shall, Wolfe said. He folded his hands. The sequence is as follows. Mr. Vane dies. Dr. Croft certifies the body. The body is transferred to Rutherford and Hale. During a period of 4 hours, it is left in a receiving room. For a brief interval, Mr. Price is absent. Upon his return, he perceives alteration. He does not verify. He reports. He is dismissed. Wolfe paused. No one interrupted. That was good. Subsequently, Wolfe continued, the body is interred. Months later, the vault is opened but not examined. Recently, a photograph is delivered, suggesting a second burial. This introduces doubt directed toward the wrong stage. He leaned forward a fraction. The substitution did not occur after burial, Wolfe said. It occurred before. Silence. Sir Leonard spoke first. That's impossible. No, Wolfe said. Merely inconvenient. Croft shook his head. I identified the body. You identified a body, Wolfe corrected. One sufficiently similar to satisfy expectation under limited examination. That's absurd. No, Wolfe said again. It is efficient. Core spoke carefully. Even if such a substitution occurred, the question remains, who would benefit? Indeed, Wolfe said. We arrive at motive. He turned his gaze slowly, deliberately across them and settled on Rask. Mr. Rask, Wolfe said. You would. Rask did not flinch. That was impressive. Also telling. Explain, Rask said. You and Mr. Vane shared investments, Wolfe said. Specifically ventures whose value depended upon his continued existence in a legal sense, but not in a practical one. Rask's expression remained neutral. That's a claim. It is a deduction, Wolfe said. If Mr. Vane were to disappear, legally dead, physically absent, control of certain assets would shift. You would gain discretion. However, verification of death must be maintained. You're suggesting I replaced a body, Rask said. I'm stating it, Wolfe said. Rask smiled slightly. With what body? Wolfe inclined his head. A body sufficiently similar, acquired through means I need not detail here. You had opportunity during the transfer. You had access through arrangement with Mr. Core. Core stiffened. I object. You facilitated documentation, Wolfe said. You ensured no questions were asked. Core's composure cracked, just enough. Wolfe continued. Dr. Croft, you certified without suspicion because you expected Mr. Vane. Mr. Vane, you declined to examine because you feared contradiction. Mr. Core, you maintained silence to preserve arrangement. Mr. Rask, you orchestrated substitution to gain control. Rask's eyes narrowed. You have no proof. Wolfe lifted a hand slightly. Mr. Goodwin. That was my cue. I stepped forward. Daniel Price will testify, I said. About the gap. About the lid. About the man in the grey coat who came to make sure he stayed quiet. That got movement. Not much, but enough. Wolfe spoke again. Additionally, the photograph you introduced, yes, Mr. Rask, you, was intended to redirect attention. It failed. Rask's calm slipped a fraction. There it was, the error Wolfe had mentioned. You cannot prove that, Rask said. I need not, Wolfe said. Mrs. Vane will open the coffin. Today, publicly, if necessary. The contents will be examined. Identity will be determined. Rask held Wolfe's gaze. Calculated. Adjusted. Then he exhaled. That won't be necessary, he said. There it was. Mrs. Vane's hand tightened on the arm of her chair. Leonard closed his eyes briefly. Core looked at the floor. Croft stared at nothing. Wolfe did not move. Proceed, he said. Rask's voice was quieter now. The body in the vault is not Horace Vane. No one spoke. Wolfe inclined his head once. And Mr. Vane? Rask hesitated. That was the last mistake. Alive, he said. The room shifted fully then, not subtly, not contained. It broke. Mrs. Vane stood. Where? Rask didn't answer. Wolfe did. In a condition of convenience, he said. Maintained until now. He leaned back slightly. That condition has ended. Silence followed. Not waiting this time. Finished. And after they were gone, escorted, arranged, whatever word you prefer, the brownstone returned to itself. Fritz brought beer. Wolfe accepted it. I lit my cigarette. Well, I said. That was tidy. No, Wolfe said. It was inevitable. Mrs. Vane's affairs would take time. Legalities, recoveries, consequences. That wasn't our concern anymore. What do you think he'll say when they find him? I asked. Wolfe lifted his glass. That depends, he said, on whether he prefers the truth or its utility. I nodded. Most people pick the second. Yes, Wolfe said, which is why the first is so valuable. Fritz announced dinner. Wolfe rose. At the door I paused. So he wasn't buried twice, I said. Wolfe looked at me. No, he said. He was simply misplaced once, and exploited twice. I grinned. That's efficient. Wolfe turned toward the dining room. Now efficiency, he said, is often indistinguishable from vice when properly applied. I followed him in. The house was quieter the next morning, but it wasn't the same quiet. This one had weight in it, like something had been settled but not entirely forgiven. Wolfe was already at his desk when I came down, which meant he had been thinking instead of sleeping. Good morning, I said. He grunted. For Wolfe, that covered several emotional registers. I poured coffee and sat. They found him? Yes, Wolfe said. Mr. Vane was located late last evening, upstate, alive, inconvenienced, and indignant. That sounds like him, I said. What's his story? Wolfe lifted a paper, glanced at it, and set it down again. He claims coercion, financial pressure, like a temporary arrangement intended to preserve certain investments during a period of instability. Temporary, I repeated. 14 months. Time, Wolfe said, is elastic when profit is involved. I nodded. And Rask? In custody, Wolfe said. Mr. Core has retained counsel. Dr. Croft has expressed professional distress. Mr. Leonard Vane has expressed filial confusion. That's polite, I said. He looked like a man who just realized he'd been cooperating with his own replacement problem. Wolfe's eyes flicked toward me. He preferred not to know. That preference has expired. I sipped my coffee. And Mrs. Vane? She will arrive, Wolfe said. She has requested a final accounting. From you, I said. Yes. That's risky, I said. People don't always like the last answer. Wolfe made a small, dismissive motion. "Ah, that is not my concern." The bell rang then, precise, almost deliberate. Fritz answered. A moment later, Mrs. Vane entered. She looked different. Not relieved. Not exactly. More resolved. Like someone who had decided which part of the truth she could carry and which she would leave behind. "Mr. Wolfe," she said. "Madam," he replied. She sat without waiting to be told. That was new. "They found him," she said. "Yes," Wolfe said. "He says he did it for business," she said, "that it was necessary." "Many things are described that way," Wolfe said. She looked at him steadily. "Was it?" "No," Wolfe said. "That landed clean. No cushion." She nodded once. "I thought not." I watched her. People in her position usually want explanation wrapped in something softer. She didn't. "I want to understand one thing," she said. "Not the mechanics, not the money. The choice." Wolfe regarded her. "You wish to know why your husband consented to his own absence?" "Yes." Wolfe folded his hands. "Because he believed himself more valuable as an idea than as a man." She didn't react immediately. Then, slowly, she exhaled. "That's accurate," she said. "Mr. Vane," Wolfe continued, "constructed a situation in which his legal death permitted the reallocation of control, while his physical survival preserved his capacity to reclaim it. Mr. Rask provided the means. Mr. Core ensured compliance. Dr. Croft supplied certification without scrutiny. Mr. Leonard Vane supplied non-interference. And I?" she asked. "You supplied legitimacy," Wolfe said. "Your acceptance completed the structure." She absorbed that without flinching. "And the photograph?" "A corrective," Wolfe said. "Mr. Rask introduced it when the opening of the vault created risk. He sought to redirect your attention toward a false sequence." "And it worked," she said. "Temporarily," Wolfe replied. She looked down at her hands, then back up. "He told me this morning that he expected me to understand." Wolfe said nothing. She smiled faintly. Not with humor, with clarity. "I do," she said. "That's the problem." Silence settled, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was finished. "What happens now?" she asked. "That," Wolfe said, "is no longer my province." "No," she said, "but you have an opinion." Wolfe inclined his head slightly. "Yes." "And?" "You will choose," he said, "whether to restore the man or preserve the lesson." She considered that. Not quickly. "I think," she said finally, "that the lesson is more reliable." Wolfe nodded once. "Indeed." She stood. "Thank you, Mr. Wolfe." "You're welcome," he said. She turned to go, then paused. "Mr. Goodwin." "Yeah?" I said. "You believed me," she said. "I believed something was wrong," I told her. "That's usually enough." She gave a small nod and left. The door closed. Fritz appeared briefly, then disappeared again, satisfied the disturbance had ended. I leaned back. "So that's that?" "No," Wolfe said. "It is merely concluded." "Same difference," I said. "No," Wolfe said. "Conclusion implies completeness. This is resolution. The consequences will proceed independently." I considered that. "You ever notice," I said, "that people go to a lot of trouble to avoid being exactly where they are?" "Yes," Wolfe said. "They find it inconvenient." "And then they pay more later," I said. "Always," Wolfe replied. Fritz announced lunch. Wolfe rose, which meant the case was officially over whether the world agreed or not. As we moved toward the dining room, I paused at the doorway, One thing, I said. If the vault had never been opened, if the photograph had never shown up, how long would it have lasted? Wolfe stopped, just enough. Until it failed, he said. That's not very precise, I said. No, Wolfe agreed. But it is accurate. I grinned slightly. I'll take it. We went in to eat. The brownstone settled back into itself, the way it always does after something tries to disturb it and fails, and as I sat down, I couldn't help thinking that Horace Vane had managed to be buried exactly once after all, but had spent 14 months proving that some men are far more dangerous when they're still alive.